We joined the country club immediately, and I was back from the service, and Katie was working in the pro shop. Uh, but so I've been a member of the club for a long, long time, and it really gives me great pleasure to introduce, in my opinion, the best pro we've ever had, or at least the top two, Adam Coates.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And if you're listening online, thank you for doing that as well. I think it's worth your time. It'll be some interesting content here. So 3 years ago, in 2019, we did a lot of work for the club's 100th anniversary. And so that was when a lot of this work was done. A lot of things on the tables were gathered back then, fortunately, because in the last month or so, I haven't put all this together. But I did do some work to find out more, and it's been fun to be asked to do this because I have learned more things that I didn't know these past few years. I'm honored to be asked to do this. This is my 12th season here in Spencer. I didn't live a lot of these years, and many of you in the crowd have seen many of these decades that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm interested in knowing what you guys experienced and what you can contribute. I was a little bit nervous about putting this on about the Northwest Amateur because I've had on my wish list to further my research. There's a lot of years where I haven't learned as much as I'd like to. I'd say the 70s, 80s, 90s. I haven't researched as much as I did the first 40 years that the club existed, but this will be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to go through a timeline from the start, work our way down. We have a lot of neat pictures to go through here. So in 1906, a lot of local young men set up a course by the current Clay County Fairgrounds and hit golf balls around among the sheep, and that was kind of the first golf that existed in Spencer. In June of 1919, the country club was formed. And, you know, having gone through the COVID period these last few years was something that I never thought in my lifetime I'd experience with the masks and not being able to go to sporting events. You kind of have a different appreciation for some life experiences. And we found out that again, something I hadn't known before, but in 1918 and 1919, there was a big influenza pandemic worldwide. So leading into this 1919, I can just kind of figure that the local community was ready for some kind of a social opportunity. It's estimated that 500 million people worldwide and 1/3 of the world's population became infected with this virus. The number of deaths estimated to be at least 50 million worldwide and 675,000 in the United States. So this was a time of a lot of hardship and a little bit similar to what we had with COVID. So I think they were wanting to form something like a country club, and they had a lot of backing to do so. Also at this time, World War I was going on, and I believe 1914 to 1918. The U.S. didn't get involved until 1917, but and also, you know, the Clay County Fair started in 1918. They found a way to start that among that pandemic still going on. But it just kind of paints a picture for what these local citizens were feeling when they wanted to form a country club. So let's start some slides here. If I can get this to go here. Not sure if it shut off. Okay, thank you. Okay, so with much petition and interest of backing, a meeting was held in April of 1919 to discuss favorable sites to build Spencer Golf and Country Club. The committee chose to seek and purchase the land southeast of Spencer on the ground where St. Luke Services and Dell's Garden Center are now currently located. So here's a really neat picture from right around 1919, 1920. You can see this this wooden box by this square. So that this square-shaped object is a tee box, and that white wooden box there next to the tee box. Anyone have a hunch what that would have been for? Back then, there was no wooden tees being sold, so that was full of sand. And what they would do is they had these metal objects that they'd put in the sand, fill it with sand, turn it upside down, and push the spring down, and it would kind of make the top kind of a concave shape to set your ball on. So that was how you teed up your ball. And a lot of these say Albert Lee, Minnesota on the top of it. So a major manufacturer, I believe, was not too far away on those. But going back to this picture, you can see the buggy parked there to the side. Actually, this must have been the late 20s, but it was pretty darn early on. The clubhouse there, you can see off in this distance a really large slide right there. I've talked to Tom Howe a lot about his memories, and they had quite a playground there with a really big slide. He would tell you that they'd bring their big sacks to slide down to go as fast as they could. Potato sack-like thing when they'd have their picnics. But pretty neat picture there. Here's a vintage picture of a few men standing outside the clubhouse. That's very early on, probably in the 20s there. Another very vintage picture there with the vehicle to the side there. Okay, so this is a aerial image of St. Luke's in Dell's Garden Center. This right in here, St. Luke's, Dell's Garden Center down here. I have a neat little transition video here that will show you this turning into a golf course. So maybe kind of look at St. Luke's there and watch how this image changes. So right about now, it's going a little slow, but all of a sudden this golf course appears in the exact same spots where the course originally existed. It was a 9-hole course. The green shading there allows you to see where the holes kind of laid out. So pretty cool. That was my main interest when we had our 100th anniversary, is I really wanted to know where those holes were on that land. And it shows you there that the entrance to the club was actually from that backside, kind of into the St. Luke's current parking lot. And the clubhouse was that wide area right there. So pretty neat. What else do we have to say about this? So, you know, I just credit the leaders of Spencer at that time to create the Country Club, the Northwest Amateur. The Country Club was 1919, the Northwest Amateur was 1921, the Clay County Fair was 1918, and in that period of time, they created some pretty darn special things. I read that a horse-drawn mower was shipped in from an eastern factory. I believe it was from Chicago, but you didn't have mowers to ride on. That was quite a task to mow grass on a facility like this. So just a real vintage time. And this shows you the comparisons all in one spot. Up in the top there is the current aerial. It shows you the layout there. But we're going to go through this hole by hole here. So the hole number 1 would have went straight west from the clubhouse there. Hole number 2 was a short downhill par 3, about 120 yards, going towards the highway. Hole number 3 came back towards the clubhouse. There's number 4 along the highway. Hole number 5 was a par 3 that those that I know that played back at that time talk a lot about. It was one of their favorite holes. It was a big tiered green. So if you were on the back side of it putting back, it was fairly easy to putt it off the front of the green. And I'm told it would roll all the way down the hill if you made too bad of a mistake there. But big valley there with a creek down below that you hit over, and pretty neat par 3 there. So in 2019, Dell's Garden Center, Ross and Beth Broxius and Dell were gracious enough to allow us to hold a party. And this picture is Dell's front yard there. Right in front of his house, he still has a mounding and a hill where that 5th green existed. They didn't flatten it out. So there's a big pine tree growing in the middle of it, and we stuck that flag in the ground that day to kind of put the flag on the green again. So that was fun. This picture is down by the creek there. You can see right under that tree there, that white flag. So that's kind of showing you a view of if you were short of the green, just how uphill that was. And I was told that most of that hill was covered with some taller grass, so you didn't have that nice grass to hit up from, but pretty neat hole. This is a picture that someone had posted online from a few years ago. This is a view what the tee box kind of felt like. It wasn't quite that overgrown, but you'd hit over that creek towards the green. And Ross Broxius and I, back in 2018, he took me down that hill, and you can still kind of see the shaping of the tee boxes. And that creek running down there, you can still see the wood bridge has kind of sunken down, but it's still down in that creek. And I have pictures of that somewhere, and I couldn't find it. That was the only thing I couldn't find. But it was really neat to see that bridge down there, down in that lot. So, hole number 6. This went right into Dell's Garden Center. So, the green there in the corner, if you can envision when you park at Dell's Garden Center in that lot, you are basically, that whole parking lot was in 6 fairway, and the green was at the very corner of the building there. So pretty neat to kind of envision that when you're on that property. So this is Dell's front yard again. You can see the flagstick we had there on 5 green, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you can see these 2 tee markers, we tried to kind of show where the 6 tee box was. And the trees weren't like that back then, but there were trees that you had to hit over. It was a pretty difficult hole that wasn't overly long, but you had to get it over those trees with a little bit of a dog leg left. Okay, number 7 was a pretty long hole. Went over the creek there. It looks to me like that would have been a pretty difficult hole to make a par on. This, when we were on Dell's Garden Center property, really neat kind of park setting back behind there, a lot of really cool trees. This is a view of that valley on hole 7 right in here. It's kind of a wetlands area now, but the posts and the beams of that bridge that you go across on 7 still exist down there. You can kind of see it, but really neat to just see the remains of that out there. So hole number 8, you can see that the tee off area, you actually had to hit your drive across the entrance to the parking lot there. So you'd kind of have to watch for cars leaving, and you'd have to watch for cars coming down the drive. But pretty interesting there. So I didn't realize this right away, but this next picture I already showed you, and you can see that picture from if you orientate the building, that's the 8th hole, but it's actually short of that road, not hitting over the road yet. So I thought, well, that's interesting. At first they built it there, and new technology came out, so they had to lengthen the hole, was my thought. But there's a bigger story to that. But just to go back here, that picture is right about here, just not crossing that road. So what I found through digging through old newspapers was, and actually I have a 1957 Northwest Amateur program that had a lot of great information in it that described this. But the Highway 18 didn't originally exist along that course. So from 1919 to about 1932, this golf course was a beautiful, quiet setting. That road wasn't down below it at all. And the board of directors of the country club, in discussions with, the state of Iowa roads department, they saw the benefit to the community of Spencer to allow this highway to go in. So they didn't really fight it. They anonymously voted to allow this highway to be built, and it caused the 9-hole course to need to be shuffled around a little bit. And so nobody really that I've talked to ever remembers this happening, but the newspapers say this, and it's definitely true. So what I actually found through research was that this tee box was originally the number 1 tee box. And through that highway being built, they had to rearrange the holes. So pretty interesting to learn that. Moving on through the 1930, my label there is actually wrong because I didn't learn that 3 years ago. It says 1919 to 1964, but this layout was actually 1932 to 1964. But here's the 9th hole coming back to the clubhouse. Here's a picture from the Northwest Amateur Tournament in about the mid-1950s. You can see a good gallery around watching the players. Pretty neat truck right up there by the clubhouse, but just a cool picture. We don't have a lot of pictures that we know of showing these kinds of scenes. So a neat scene there on 9 green. This is another photograph that you see a lot. I know this is on the wall in the hospital. You see a lot of postcards out there that had this picture on it if you ever search for that. But this is the 9th green as well. The photographer would have been standing in about the 8th fairway. And it's neat to see around the ninth green these crazy mounds. Those are some pretty sharp mounds there to mow. A lot of character there. And the vintage cars there are pretty neat to see too. Yeah, you would know more than I, but yeah, maybe late 40s. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, here's another picture that came along. I believe Arts on Grand maybe found this photo somewhere. But these two gentlemen are putting on the ninth green. The older man sitting there watching them. Neat to see a kind of close-up picture of the building behind there with the brick. Vehicle there. Pretty cool. So this page right here gave a lot of history. This is in this 1957 Northwest Amateur Tournament program that we found in storage. It's probably one of the most relevant pieces of the club's history in my mind. So I guard that pretty well. But I made a couple extra copies of it, and we'll go through that tonight. But this is where it talked a lot in detail for me about the highway going in and the story behind agreeing to allow that to happen. And here's a newspaper article from 1932 talking about how I believe 3 tee boxes and 1 green need to be moved, but they agreed, the state of Iowa kind of agreed to build 4 new greens. I think that the membership was really excited about, hey, we're going to get this new bent grass quality greens and we're going to really benefit from this this remodel, you know. Pretty significant thing that happened there to rearrange what they had, and this just goes into detail about some of the details of what was being done to rearrange the holes, and it lists the holes there, where they're headed, and the orientation of them. So here shows you the comparison. This article here on the left side, this is in the newspaper July 30th of 1919, and it gave incredible detail of where the holes were laid out. It wasn't a plan, it was already laid out. So that was what I was able to base on to figure out what the original design looked like. So that picture with the white box is right there. That was where 1 tee started, which is logical and makes sense to start by the clubhouse there. But what we all know to be number 8 was originally number 1. What we all know to be number 9 was originally number 2. So, you know, they added those 2 holes into the start of the round, and so what we all know of 2 is 4, so you add 2. And where it really started to get mixed around was when you get to the last 4 holes of the course. You can see that on the top of the screen there, that 6th hole right there, that's going to the green that we know of as 5, but it was actually number 7. And number 7 went pretty darn close to the forest of trees there in the river. And I may have just said that wrong, but I think I did. So 6, I'm sorry, 6 was going towards the clubhouse. 7 is the one that came around and went to what is known as 5 green to most of us that remember or researched what we thought was. So number 7 there was a little bit of a dog leg up from a different direction. Number 8 is the hole that I would have really liked to see. From the newspaper article, it's described as being tucked real close to that river, up on a high bluff and running around along the trees there, a little par 3. That would have been a really neat hole down there where the highway is now, and probably a fun little shot to hit. And then number 9 there is pretty much in the spot where number 7, as we all remember the course, would have been. So, you know, something you probably learned tonight. I bet not many people realize that took place, but it definitely did. From 1919 to 1932. This was a postcard of, it was labeled as a gentleman putting on number 7 green. The postcard was around 1930 or 1931. So when I found this 3 years ago, I thought that the photographer must have made an error because that definitely looks like the 5th green. But because of what we learned with the arranged holes, it actually was the number 7 green at that time. But really neat to see him with his bag there on the side of the green and the clubhouse in the background. We're going to get into some really cool aerial photos here. You can see this would have been a busy day. This could have been the Northwest Amateur, a lot of vehicles there. What you're seeing down below there is 7 green, and you can see the billboards along the highway up there, and this next image here, I've got some labels on it. So you've got 7 green, number 9 green, number 2 green. That par 3 is way up in the corner. Number 3 green is close to the clubhouse. So we have images on the tables of this if you want to see it afterwards. But really neat photography there to see what it looked like. I noticed in a lot of these pictures, I'll point it out in this first one, number 9 green there has 2 sand traps on the front of it, nothing behind it. So we'll look at another one and see how that changes. This is a great picture here. This is number 9 green in the bottom, and now you see those 2 sand traps on the back have also been added. It's got a neat little walking path with a couple of handrails on the side. I think that looks pretty cool how that leads to the clubhouse. And the gentleman to the left there, those guys are on the practice putting green. And Tom and I learned something about this today too that we'll talk about, but that putting green is not visible in a lot of these photos. And what Tom and his friends could remember, somebody was able to remember that in the last years, the practice putting green was over in that area of the parking lot over there. It wasn't over to the left there. But really cool picture there. This picture I did not see till last week. I was able to meet Amanda Gloyd and Dale Miller at St. Luke's. We'd kind of swapped emails a few times, but I didn't actually meet Amanda till this last week. And she had this photo from the museum, and just a great aerial photo. The highway's down at the bottom here. Shows a lot of holes here. I'll show you the next image here to give you a feel for what you're looking at. But you can see so many holes. Number 1 going away from the clubhouse. 2 is not visible. 3 and 4 going back the other way to the east. If you look at a close-up of this on a table, you can really see a lot of detail. I was asking Tom today about these white objects on the tees here. That's not white right there, but this one's white. About every hole had a little shelter there with a bench where 4 guys could sit underneath a shaded shelter. That's pretty cool. Would have liked to go back in time and get in a DeLorean and just see what this all looked like. Here are some cool yardage markers that Brian Moore was given. He protects these for us. He brought them in here. They're on the counter right here if you want to look at them later. But these are from the original course. You got a 200-yard marker that would have been on a post in the fairway. And then to the right there, what it currently looks like is the top image. And I just kind of photoshopped in some color so that you could read what that actually looked like back in the day. But it was a marker for the 8th hole showing it was 495 yards, par 5. So really cool. We don't have many artifacts like that, and they're here for you tonight. Okay, so going back to the start of the Northwest Amateur, this is August 11th, 1921. Big golf tourney at Spencer next week. August 15th was the first round of the first ever Northwest Amateur, so it's really cool to read this and just see what was said. Walt Thomas was such a founder of the country club and especially the Northwest Amateur. He was an excellent golfer, but really credited for getting it going. He was the first tournament chairman, did that for several years. And 60 golfers participated in 1921 in this event. By 1955, the stat I read was 298 entered, and this was a 9-hole course. So, you know, we manage the Northwest Amateur. I cannot imagine getting 298 golfers on a 9-hole course. That'd be something else. But they had some different ways of doing things. In this program here, it details that it was a 5-day tournament rather than a 4-day tournament. So again, I'd like to research it further. I don't have a great grasp on some of these details of how that was laid out, and I'd love to research to get a feel for how many participated each year. You know, at what point did it start climbing from that 60 participants and get more into the number we're at today. This article, it's either this one or the next one. Let me see here if I can read it. Must be the next one. But I'll go ahead and show you a picture of Walt Thomas here. Terrific golfer. He won the Northwest Amateur 3 times. Tournament director of the event for 20 years. And won a few other events. The Iowa Masters is still a big event. He won the first ever Iowa Masters. But we really had a core group of guys that could really golf. And Northwest Iowa was a fixture in the state of Iowa tournaments. And they brought a lot of things up this way and participated across the state. But it's fun to talk about these guys because they really were talented. Here's a picture of Emery Snyder. Some of you probably knew Emery. I did not, but I know he was around for a while, and golf course superintendent for many years, tournament director of the Northwest Amateur for 18 years, but very key part of the history of Spencer Golf and Country Club. Okay, so this is a few days later, August 17th, 1921. The paper was published kind of in the evening or afternoon. So this was written in the morning saying that Warren Dickinson and Lee Herron were tied for the lead, and that day would decide the event. And Dickinson actually won the first one. I think Herron won the next 3, but it just details all the flight winners and the happenings of the tournament. A neat detail about this article right here. Some of the guys over the last several years we've talked about, has a woman ever played in the Northwest Amateur? And we were convinced that there was not a chance. That we knew decades, the many decades in recent time there hadn't been, and a woman could certainly play in it. You know, there's been Annika Sorenstam has played in a PGA Tour event and qualified for one. Susie Whaley is a PGA professional that's played in a men's PGA Tour event. So they certainly could play in the Northwest Amateur, but they just have to play from the same distance as the men. So I believe it'll happen someday. It's going to have to be a talented golfer, you know, but it's going to happen. And there's a lot of talented ladies out there that can do that. But this article states that of the 60 golfers, right in this area, the article, it shows that 3 women played that year. Miss Doris Dickinson of Des Moines, who I believe must have been the daughter of Warren Dickinson, who was the winner. They must have been a very talented golfing family. Mrs. Helen Mann of Burlington, formerly Helen Perrine of Spencer. And then Miss Renee Montour, I hope I pronounced that right. She was the secretary of our club. So pretty neat that they participated. Doris Dickinson did fairly well. She got 3rd place in the 4th flight. But pretty interesting little thing to know there. This article, August 7th, 1930, a few years later. Girl golfer creates stir here at the Northwest Amateur. You know, I would call this lady courageous, pretty, you know, somebody to research and learn more about. Her name was Maxine Rarick from Primgar, and she played in the Northwest Amateur in 1929 and 1930. In this article here, 1930, stated that she was 17 years old and an extremely talented golfer. I think, you know, at that time in history, she may not have been welcomed with open arms by some of the other participants, you know, but very courageous to compete. I think she just had a love for the game, and it stated that she was a top finisher in the women's state tournament. So pretty cool there. As far as I've researched, those are the only instances of women participating, but pretty cool to know. I don't talk about this enough. I just have one slide on this, but you know, when we see on Facebook or any chatter about the Northwest Amateur, a lot of people remember being caddies still in the community. And here's just a couple articles talking about they had caddy tournaments back then. The other article is looking for more caddies for the Northwest Golf Amateur tournament, as they needed more than normal. But you know, kids back then, that was the big thing. That was how they made money. And I know so many people in this community still, they say, man, I could really make a lot of money during that Northwest Amateur. And I marked my calendar by that. But anyone in this room was a caddy for Spencer Golf and Country Club? Tom, yeah. Okay, yeah. It was a big deal. So I just have one slide on it, but I wish I had more. I need to research more on that. And the caddy tournaments were a big deal too. This isn't Northwest Amateur related, but I thought this is pretty darn cool. Through looking through newspaper articles, on August 22nd, 1935, Spencer Golf and Country Club hosted Gene Sarazen and Babe Diedrichson Zaharias in a exhibition match. So this was actually only arranged about 7 or 8 days before the event. But somebody that was really smart here at our club saw an opportunity and capitalized on it to bring this to the club, because this is really neat. Gene Sarazen had won the Masters, the second ever Masters tournament, 4 months before this. And Babe Diedrichson was 24 years old at the time. She's known by many to be the best female athlete of all time. She was a gold medal winner in the Olympics. She won, I believe, at least 50 LPGA Tour events later on in her life, and was a multi-sport athlete and just incredibly talented. And, you know, to think that these two were walking around the land of St. Luke's and Dell's Garden Center is pretty cool. In today's world, you would never be able to pull this off without a huge sum of money. And I think they just found at that time, they spent that whole summer kind of doing this for, you know, probably a couple months at least, going from place to place each day. I read that in the afternoon they played an exhibition at Brooks Golf Club up at the lakes. It actually, in a lot of articles, they called it Brooks Beach Club, which I'd never seen before. But very, very cool event there. This slide shows an exhibition. This wasn't at Spencer Golf and Country Club, but this was the same thing they would do going from place to place. So this right here is Babe Diedrichson. Over here is Gene Sarazen. Babe Diedrichson passed away at age 45 of cancer, died real early. Gene actually lived to be 98, so really lived more than 2 lifetimes more than Babe. But she'd be worth researching. You could spend a whole night learning about her accomplishments. Pretty amazing lady. So that was 1935. Here's you know, just a newspaper article with some photos showing a lot of things we do today. You know, we have volunteer scorekeepers over here. At least we had until recent history. Now we're into the computer software that's changing that a little bit. But it's neat to see all the volunteers and the members enjoying the tournament. So the headline says, "Remains the best in golf in Iowa every year." Here's a picture that's kind of hard to see, but it shows a really big gallery watching a playoff of the Northwest Amateur around the 9th green. It says there, it's hard to read, but it says between 800 and 1,000 spectators. That's pretty cool. We get a lot of people watching today, but not nearly that many. So here's the picture on the front of this 1957 program here. Only picture I believe we have in color of the original location, but this gentleman is standing in front of the number 1 tee, short distance. Those colorful metal chairs there are pretty cool to see lined up there behind the tee. I think this was kind of a big common thing across, you know, Iowa. If you look up Marshalltown, Iowa's country club, their logo is still 3 colorful chairs like that is their actual logo. Just kind of a appreciation for history, but neat to see those heavy metal chairs there. So I had a little fun with this. When I met with Amanda, I wanted to know where this picture was taken, so I recreated this picture last week, and I was standing where this gentleman was standing, so that was fun. No clubhouse anymore. There's a portion of St. Luke's there back behind there. But, you know, everybody's different about history, but I love knowing exactly where this clubhouse and these greens were to stand out there and see it. It just kind of brings it back to life. But that was fun. Again, I showed this picture earlier. This is 9 green with the clubhouse in the distance. I believe I was pretty accurate to take this from the same location. This right here is the front of St. Luke's entrance and parking lot. I believe I was standing in about the same spot as that photographer where he would have photographed 9 green in the clubhouse. So gives you a feel for where that picture was taken. This is an awesome blueprint that Amanda and Dale Miller also helped me out last week. They're both employees of St. Luke's. They have these blueprints of when St. Luke's was being built. And What's really neat is they showed in detail where the golf holes were at. I'll move on to the next slide here. This shows you the original structure of St. Luke's. It's had some small portions built onto it. And along with that, that red box is the concrete floor of the clubhouse. So you can see where the original Country Club clubhouse was built over, with St. Luke's mainly being on top of it. And then you can see the greens that I've colored in there. I'll go back here and you can kind of see the outlines and the flag sticks, but you can see that on the bottom there, that wing of the building is built right on top of the 9th green, and you can see where the sand hazards were. And it was just really fun to walk around and see this. Around this 3rd hole right here, there's a black bench on a sidewalk right about where that's at. Dale has worked there for a really long time. He's getting ready to retire. He told us that years ago they found a pretty good patch of what looked like a fine bent grass putting green over in that front area. And that makes sense from what we found out, that, you know, some of those pictures showed the practice green right in here, but in the end it was over there where he had found that grass. So cool to know that. And the 7th green, you can see a portion of it right on the top of the blueprint there. Okay, so let's just go through some of these pages of this. It kind of bring you back in time. This was the inside of the cover, Coca-Cola Ad. They're the 35th annual Northwest Amateur, August 1st through 5th. Kind of welcoming everyone to Spencer. We have, it looks like Ken Scott would have been the creator of this catalog. I believe Earl Fisher was the current board president of the country club, welcoming everybody. There's a cool drawing of the 9 holes there on the left side. And then you have Walt Twett and the Spencer Chamber of Commerce welcoming everyone to the tournament. The Dean of Northwest Iowa Golf, Walt Thomas. And then to the right there, that club history page that gave me so much information to figure out some of these other details. It tells a little bit of stories about some of the old tournaments. You know, Walt won 3 tournaments, and they mentioned a lot of times that the 1931 tournament, he tied Dick Tang. It went to an 18-hole playoff, and Walt missed a 4-footer on the last hole to lose it. And I think he kind of wanted that one pretty bad, and I think the members wanted it too. But they talked about that a lot, how great that tournament was and how close it was. Iowa Golf Association, pretty neat to see this back then. Don Hall would have been the president of the IGA. Herman Sandy is still a big figure in Iowa golf. The Herman Sandy tournament is played every year, like the Northwest Amateur is. And there's a Herman Sandy scholarship for the Iowa Golf Association that the Northwest Amateur donates to every year. But neat to see how heavily involved he was and how much he promoted the Northwest Amateur the way he did by reading this. Sports editors, they did a great job promoting the tournament back then, worked hard on getting the word out across the state. That's showing a couple gentlemen from KICD locally on the top, and then KTIV television on the bottom. There's an advertisement for Northwest Federal. Walt Thomas was actually the president of Northwest Federal, and I read there Harold Howe as vice president. He was heavily involved in the club as well, so interesting page there. Emery Snyder was the chairman in 1957. Shows Bill Woods, head starter, Bob Woods, assistant starter. Bob would later become the tournament chairman for many years. And, you know, this is just the story of the tournament today. The reason we're so successful is all the volunteers. Back then, they actually had all these committees, and they had members in charge of so many things. And it was a bigger production back then probably than it is today. They did a lot of extra activities that we would struggle to manage today. But there's 2 copies of this up here if you want to take a look at this and maybe see some people you know. Neat that they have all the headshots of them. Many sponsors there listed that funded making this booklet. I think this was probably a one-time deal. In the first one, if it happened again the next few years, it'd sure be cool to find it. A lot of pictures of the tournament, showing the 1956 champion here, Sarge Fontanini. I think I pronounced that right. holding the trophy at that time. Quite a neat big trophy. You've got John Jacobs, 4-time tournament winner. Dr. Ed Updegraff, he is still alive. He just turned 100 years old a couple months ago. Was a tremendous golfer. Was just, I think it was last year, added to the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame, but a very much legend in the world of golf. Jim English there, won at least 3 times, if not 4, but neat to learn a little bit there about those gentlemen. Other Northwest champions playing, you have Walt Thomas, Phil Donahue there. Cindy Greer is awful proud to be related to him. We had a towel that we sold a few years ago that listed all the champions on the towel, and it's neat how clearly they could do that. And Cindy took one of those to Phil and told me how amazingly proud he was of that he would have it on him every single day looking at that. So he was real proud to have his name on that champions list. 1956 championship flight, everyone pictured there the year before that qualified. Going to the next page, you have your first, second, third, fourth flight winners. Pretty neat that all these players were if we tried to do this today, I bet you 40% of the guys would refuse to allow us to take their picture. It's just something that they don't want their picture taken, but it's really cool how back then they were able to do this and show everyone. Fifth flight winners, and the ads are interesting from back then. The new inn of Okoboji. This is showing Okoboji where to eat, where to stay. The club members recommended these hotels and restaurants. Just a few things about club activities. Family picnics back in the day were a big deal, as many of you probably remember that lived this. This says that average crowd at a picnic was 400 people. That's pretty cool. That was on the opposite side of the clubhouse from 9 Green to the west of the clubhouse was where those picnic tables were. Official club opening, they had a Bill Woods pancake breakfast tradition. I read, you find it here, this was started. Bill Wood, Art Mateer, Pete Schneckloth, and Dwayne Mann started the Sunday pancake breakfast in 1945. 60 people had attended. By 1957, when this was made, 800 attended the pancake breakfast. And it says it right there, annually attended by 800.
Where was it held?
It was inside the clubhouse right there. That's one of the only photos I've ever seen inside of that clubhouse, but pretty neat.
They used to have band dinners, like from the high school band.
Okay,
That was like
I believe it.
59 or 60. And everybody would line up to go to band dinners at the country club.
I've always said that the way that clubhouse was built, you could have a formal dinner party upstairs and a stag party in the lower level, and never would the two meet. I mean, it was that well built, that well thought out.
I was told to repeat things from the crowd so that the online crowd could hear, but Tom just said you could, in that old clubhouse, you could have 2 large events and functions on the upstairs and downstairs, and neither one would know that the other one was going on. It was that big and separated. Okay, 1957 Ladies' Day Invitational pictures. Thursday steak fries. I saw a lot of guys trying to remember if Men's Day was Wednesday or Thursday, but it used to be Thursday, and they would do steak fries. Entertainment, club dances, couple photos there. There's a trombone there. So I don't know when this ended, but they had a Northwest Amateur annual style show during the tournament. Friday, August 2nd, it was showing that Mrs. Wilbur Sackett, and that's something you see in the newspapers too. There's a lot of times they would not list the lady's name. It was always, that sure changed over the decades for the good. A short little snippet off of that. Our club championship tournament for the club, I found actually started in 1920. So that has a huge history for the men as well. We're over 100 years of champions on that. And I found that in 1935 was the first women's club championship. And I want to find the time to make this list, and it's so frustrating that I can't find their first names to put on this ladies club champion list, but that's just how it was. But
I think it's interesting to see the names of the women's shops that were there.
yeah. Yeah, you know, you didn't have Amazon and online shopping, so the local shops were a big thing. You had Ellerbrock's, Beehive, Penny's, Pools, Davies, Feldman's, and Cragen's listed there. And that was what they looked forward to, was getting together and seeing all that. The page to the right, the Northwest Amateur Banquet, August 4th at 7:15 p.m. sharp. In the front of the magazine, it shows that August 5th was the final day, so they still had a round of golf to play after this. It lists some Sunday evening entertainers, but had a big banquet there. We'd love to do something like this, but in today's world, when we get done on Sunday night, the players are heading in their car to Des Moines before their putt drops on 18, you know, and we can totally understand. It's a big commitment to leave home, and they need to get back and get back to work and back to their families. So we do not have a big fancy banquet today. So this wasn't inside the catalog, but this was a neat photo that we found of this ladies' fashion show. This was 1959, and probably some. I think this was on Facebook in the last few years, and some of these ladies were being identified. But a really neat picture that probably means something to a lot of you that remember this era. This would have been on the west side of the clubhouse, opposite of 9 Green. Neat to see the door there, how fancy that double door was, and you can see the picnic table right there in that picnic area, but really neat photo there. And this is towards the end of the catalog, or the brochure here, for 1957, in remembrance of Dale Norton. He had passed away the year before. I don't know a lot about Dale Norton other than the football field's named after him, and I know he's a big figure in the city of Spencer. So,
The N of H&N Chevrolet.
say that again.
He was the N of
Oh,
H&N Chevrolet.
he was the N of H&N Chevrolet. I didn't know that. On the right side, you have a score sheet there to follow players and track stats of the tournament. Here's a couple of just copies of letters that the membership sent. One was to, I believe, Ike Eisenhower, if I remember right. Ike Eisenhower, and then Babe Diedrichson. So this was right when Babe Diedrichson was fighting cancer, and it looked like she had a fund. And the club wrote both of them letters offering them lifetime memberships. And the bottom one is a really neat letter from Babe's husband, George Saharius, thanking the club and saying that he really hoped to make it up here to revisit. But neat letter that the club got back there. Couple ads there. You got Farmers Trust and Savings Bank and Ham's beer from Loof Distributing. But pretty cool to see old ads like that. And here's the back cover, Pabst Blue Ribbon on the back of the magazine. Okay, so moving on. Here's a big one. August 11th, 1960, just 3 days after the 38th annual Northwest Amateur Tournament, fire destroyed the original clubhouse. I was told that you could see this flame from Okoboji. It was big and black, and a couple of photos there from the newspaper. The membership began a time of division in debating the best future plans for the club as other challenges beyond the clubhouse fire existed at the original location. You know, when I first started learning about the history, I assumed that, well, the clubhouse fire must have been the reason to analyze everything, but there was a couple other big factors to consider of why they had a big decision to make. They were landlocked. They really wanted to have 18 holes. And between the highway and the farm to the north, they could not buy more land to add 9 holes. So they were landlocked. They knew they had water source issues underground to irrigate the course. They looked at other possible sites, much better situations. And I can tell you that where we're currently at, we've got a great situation with 3 wells underground and the sandy soil. If we get a 2-inch rain, we can really soak that in pretty easily. So they made a really good choice on land there. Better quality soil and sand base elsewhere, as I mentioned. So, slide 79. Not sure what's going on there. Okay, so you know, from what I read, I think a lot of country club members had a lot of sleepless nights. They were frustrated. They were arguing about what to do. The board of directors at the time did their homework. They felt that the best decision by far was to relocate, and I'm guessing they probably had a few people in their ear that were really making their life hard. And for a while there, it was really, really a tough time. But in the end, through all the challenges of figuring out what to do, the membership voted 120 people to 13 that the best thing to do was to relocate and purchase land from the Star and Helen Goodale family, which is where we're at now. It was the Goodale farm, just west of the city limits. And there's a sketch of our current clubhouse. Pretty neat image there. I have the same text there, but here's another neat looking sketch there. You can see the Pro Shop building was originally a straight line looking out to the 10th tee there. Now it's kind of got a V shape, but originally it was straight there. You can see under the roof in here, folks walking outside. I've got a picture coming up here that'll show you how there was some changes over time that originally did look something like that. So here's a fun one for you tonight that'll probably mean something to a lot of you. So last summer, we had a gal from Clarion, Iowa come and play golf. She came in the pro shop and she said her dad took a lot of videos, had passed away, and this 8mm film said Country Club Fire Spencer. And so she was going through things and said, this probably might mean something to you. I don't want it. And I said, yes, I'll definitely take that. And once I had some free time in the winter, I got it sent in and digitized from the film so I could watch it. And I've only showed this to a couple people. This is the kind of thing that you don't just put on Facebook and say, hey, look at this. You know, it's a part of history, but it's I don't know if you call it emotional, but it's just something to really see. That'll probably bring back a lot of memories for many of you. So this is a 3-minute video of the fire in color. We had that one color photo. It's something else when you watch this. You'll see the red flag of number 9 green in the front ground in the first part of this video. That red flag is the 9th green. So let's try to get this going here. Quite the black fire there, just a huge flame. A lot of people standing around the building there. Doug Hart tells me that he was actually out golfing that day. He was about 9 years old. And there you can see that red flag there. That's something else to see that flag. Also behind it, it looks to me to be the Northwest Amateur scoreboards. There was 3 boards standing there. There's your chairs around the 1 green, kind of pulled away from the building.
What started it, do you know?
Yeah, the paper said it was an electrical fire in the ceiling. So some sort of a accidental electrical fire inside the walls. But this is, I'll just let you watch this for about 3 minutes here. You'll see the fire department battling it here. There's quite the flame coming out of the chimney there. There's the firemen in their long black trench coats. There's a little 7-Up object of some sort. I don't know if that was an ice cooler there. Here they come with their hose, and it looks like a battle they're not winning. So yeah, this was August of 1960. It's just about finished up here, but quite a video to have. So Doug's story, he told us that he was out golfing with his friends. This was a Thursday around noontime, and he went running in and was coming back and in and out and getting everybody's golf bags out of the building in the club storage. And his heroic efforts to do this for everyone didn't pay off a few days later when they found out they could have gotten brand new clubs from insurance. But the poor kid was doing the right thing. Video's just about done here, and we'll move on. Okay. Okay, so the decision to relocate. This is the bare farmland that we're currently on. The little square in the middle there is what is referred to as the Dynamite Pit. You can see in the upper right corner there, I believe, some hay bales where we currently have some houses on the 18th Avenue residential street. I find it interesting. You can just see this little, almost like an old riverbed when it, but that's our low valley on the range and hole 10 and hole 1. When we get a lot of rain, that's where we get water. And then this right here would be in front of 11 Green, that little valley that can flood. But before there was a golf course, you kind of had that existing that way. So here's an old aerial in the first few years of the mid-'60s, shaping out these holes. You can see some houses had been built. Here's a pretty current image of the green and all the trees. You can see the couple ponds there on hole 18 and hole 17. But slide 86, this is the one. So when I made a little video 3 years ago, it was fun to show a transition here. I'm going to start this video, and I slowed it down a little bit. I might have slowed it down too much, but if you just watch this transition into a course, it's pretty neat to see the Barrowland turn into a golf course. There the holes are slowly appearing. So that little square where the Dynamite Pit was shows up right in that low spot on hole 18 fairway. And then you can just see the trees filling in there. Pretty fun to do that. The houses on the left side there, the country club lane, have all been put in. And here's a fun drone video from the last few years, just showing how green and lush the course is today.
Adam, any history on who built the first house out there?
I bet we could figure that out. I bet it was in that area of 9 Green and 16T, probably in there were some of the first houses on the road there, but I bet we could figure that out. On that topic, when we get done, I do have a couple really neat blueprints of each side of the road, and then this color one. I didn't remember that I had this in storage, but it looks like somebody colored it in with color, and it's handwritten who owns the lots there originally, so it's quite a historic sheet there to take a look at. This was one that we got from George Turner. His wife sent us a lot of cool things when he passed away recently. This was like a large brochure advertising the 42nd Annual Northwest Amateur. It would have been the 1964 tournament, and this is saying that next year in 1965 we'll be playing the new site. But neat to see this history. I also think it's cool. This is the only one I have on the slideshow, but I've seen in many places this Northwest Amateur logo right here. Used to look a little bit different than it does today. I believe it was that color image of the gentleman that I was comparing myself to. I believe it was that photo that they copied for that logo there. Looking face on there, so neat to see how that logo used to look like. Here's a newspaper article, came across 1966. This was the second year in the new facility. Champion Ralph Compiano is being given the trophy from Dr. Mike Fiddler, the current president of Spencer Golf and Country Club. I've been around long enough that I met Mike Fiddler, but pretty cool picture there to see how young he looked then. and there's the large trophy there. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. This is a neat postcard that I came across. This would have been in the very first few years of our current clubhouse. But you can see the pro shop was originally flat across the front there. So at some point they added on to that. I can't imagine how small that would have been, especially having many golf bags in storage in that building. There wasn't much room for merchandise. We have quite the merchandise operation now that would have probably been balls and tees back then. But they added on the pro shop. You'll also see that under this roof of the clubhouse, the bar area was expanded fairly early on. They really brought that towards the golf course. All that seating in our bar area was actually outdoors under that roof. Looks like there was like some outdoor picnic tables right there originally. And then if you look at the walkway here, you can see a little reflection, but our current restaurant manager office and bookkeeper office did not exist until later on. So that was a wider walkway, and that reflection is a really large glass window down in that restroom area hallway. There's a large bulletin board down there, and a few years ago when we were fixing that up and repainting it, we took that bulletin board off briefly and found that there was a huge boarded off window behind that bulletin board. So that bulletin board isn't going anywhere. It's hiding that window that used to be there. And it's neat to see the vintage golf carts there. You know, golf carts barely were around the last few years of the original site. They kind of came along in the 60s for the most part, but those are quite vintage looking. So here's a fun photo. If you can think for 10 seconds to try and figure out where this photo was taken. I'll tell you here in a second, but give yourself a minute to try and solve that quiz. There's not very many trees. There's a lot of open land in the background there. And here's the comparison. Those gentlemen are just off the side of 18 green, and it's looking back towards the pond there, towards 18T, but you can really see how the course didn't have very many trees back there at that time. Here's another amazing photo. I wish I had the one handy that doesn't have the labels so you could think about it for a second. But I'm going to give away the answer right away. So these gentlemen were on 9 green of our current clubhouse, or our current country club golf course. And what you see in the background there is the elevator. It looks like it's 100 yards away, but it's across town. You can see the Clay County Courthouse, the roof of it, the tall, skinny Grace United Methodist Tower there. That's amazing. That feels like it's so far away, but you could actually see that plain as day playing the 9th hole back then. In front of that, the YMCA. You could see that your wife was arriving in the parking lot to YMCA. Trinity Lutheran Church over to the right of that, but just amazing how the trees have made a difference to really make the golf course feel more like a secluded park setting. And here's the comparison. I went out and took a photo from about that location. That's what it looks like today, all those trees there on 9 green. Here's just a photo of a recent Northwest Amateur tournament. We have Trent Peterson chipping onto the front of the green there. You know, this is what today's tournament looks like. A lot of members watching around the green, just a fun atmosphere with folks watching the leaders there finish up on the final round. And this is back to probably the late 60s here, just an aerial photo showing you how few trees there were on our current golf course. It's really come a long ways. So with that, I really want to give a big credit to Chuck Moore here tonight. As far as creating what we have for a golf course and the Northwest Amateur as well, they tie in together, they play the same course, but Chuck was a superintendent for 28 years and built the trees and the course and all the things over the years with a lot of passion. So he deserves a lot of credit for, you know, building what we have today. You know, going back to that time of the fire, you know, the members probably had a lot of fear. We were starting from scratch. We don't know what we're going to end up with. And some of them didn't want to leave what they had worked so hard for so many years, but started from scratch, and Chuck really got us heading in the right direction with a beautiful course. So I'm going to have Chuck come on up and say a few things. You know, he lived it for 28 years, and he's got some cool stories to tell about fixing up the golf course for the tournament and the members. Yeah, that'd be fine too. He just said if you walk away to
Okay.
make sure to.
Well, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I was involved for 28 years, and I saw a lot of changes happen for the golf course and for the tournament. When I came here in 1969, Like you said, there was no trees on the golf course. We only had automated greens and tees. And there was no fairway irrigation. We had quick couplers up the center of every fairway that we could manually water. In hot, dry summers, we couldn't keep up. In those years, everybody aimed down the roughs. They wanted to hit the hard pan. They wanted to get the roll to make the course easier. Just one story that I remember, it was in the early 70s. Ivan Miller in the morning had hit a good drive on 18. It got through the pit, went up the hill, and ended up on top of about 15, 20 yards from the 18th green. In the afternoon, Tom Chapman from Fort Dodge, he outdid him. He hit his drive through the pit up on the green. And those were 380, 390-yard drives, which would never happen in those days because a good drive was 270, 275. Another thing that happened one year, we had a lot of rain, and we had rough. And Emery Snyder, who was the tournament director at that time, and I was just a young kid, felt like that we should give these golfers some rough that year. We quit mowing the rough about a week before the amateur. It turned into a disaster. By the time the tournament got over, the rough was so long that we had to have spotters because the golfers were losing golf balls. So that, needless to say, we had a lot of unhappy people that left that year, and we never wanted that to happen because we wanted people to come back to the amateur. 1970 is when we started putting trees in. We were planting 1,000 trees every year for 4 or 5 years. It wasn't we were going to gain 1,000 trees every year because we would replace the trees that we lost the year before. So we'd keep them going and add some more trees. And as you see, these trees all grew up, and we have a pretty nice golf course. Another thing that happened, one of the big things that happened in 1976, probably the biggest change to the golf course that ever happened, we upgraded our irrigation system. We took the quick couplers out, pulled out laterals, had two heads on this lateral, 2 heads on this, end up with the equivalent of a 4-row irrigation system. And so our golf course was basically watered from wall to wall. And we always had rough from then on. It just never got out of hand like it did that year that we kind of got goofy. In the late 70s, we started putting traps in on the course. The original blueprint for our golf course had if all the traps got put in, there should be 70 traps on the golf course. We end up putting a trap in to the right of 9 and 2 greens traps on number 4. I left in 79 and came back in 89, and there hadn't been a trap put in, so we got back on a trap program, and over the next few years we ended up with about 14 traps on the golf course. Another good thing that happened when I came back in 89, we had a morning and afternoon session. So we were able to keep the golf course pretty equal for morning and afternoon. In the earlier days, there was just tee times from morning till afternoon. So the same people played the same cup. So the people that were finishing up, the last groups were playing pretty rough greens because the cups never got changed. In the early years, everyone was using steel spikes. So it even made the problem worse. When we went to soft spikes, it was a mandatory deal that you had to have soft spikes, and it helped that situation out quite a bit. Another thing, when we went to the 2 sessions, we could have 388 players with having the morning and afternoon sessions. There was a couple years when we decided to add a few tee times before, so we ended up with like 416 players. With that many players, if we ever had any type of rain delay, it was a problem. And a lot of these people that were involved in it, it wasn't a good situation. I mean, there was a lot of times when people could not complete their rounds the day before, and had to come out in the morning and finish their rounds. That was a nightmare for the maintenance crew, because we had to get those 3 holes ready for the people who were playing early and try to get the rest of the golf course in shape, because people were teeing off at 7 o'clock, but we seemed to always get through it. Another thing when we had that type of delays, I mean, there was years, I think one year we had a 45-hole tournament. I think the championship only got to play 9 holes. There was a few other years where we only had 54-hole tournament, but most in general, we had a 72-hole tournament every year for the Northwest Amateur. One of the big things that happened in the 90s, the Northwest Amateur was unique because everyone walked. We had no golf carts, and I don't know I don't know when the date was, but it was a bad deal because all the older people that were coming to our tournament year after year got too old and couldn't walk the tournament anymore, so they had to quit. Well, when we added carts to the tournament, that brought a lot of the old people back that had supported the tournament. It was good to see those faces because it was everyone knew each other, and so that was a big deal when carts got added. The thing about the Northwest Amateur, I think what makes it the most successful, it's very successful. It fills up fast. I mean, last year it filled up in 70 minutes, 388 players online. That's quite a thing to say about what happens here in Spencer, Iowa. In the earlier days when invites were sent out, the members would always get an invite the week before, and then the rest of the field got the invite a week later. This was normally the end of June. In those days, with the mail and everything, that tournament would fill up in a week or less. So it just kind of tells you how popular the Northwest Amateur is. I mean, it's a family affair. People schedule vacations for the whole week. They come here, there's groups of people that come here, and they make a whole week out of it. So it's a pretty special event. I think the reason why this thing stays so successful is because of the people at Spencer Golf and Country Club, all the volunteers, the pro shop, people working the pro shop, the club manager, people working the clubhouse. They all make these people feel welcome. When you come here, they know that we're happy to have them here. And if you feel welcome, you're going to come back year after year. And I think that's part of the reason why this thing stays so successful. Another thing is, the golf course superintendent and the maintenance crew always gives the people a premier golf course to play. So we've had a good tradition going, and I hope we can keep this tradition going for many more years. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be willing to answer.
Chuggy, do you remember why anybody that was doing the math, it should be the 102nd Northwest Amateur. Why is it only the 100?
I guess I don't know. I mean, maybe Adam's got an answer for that, but, so.
For those online, the question was, why isn't the 102nd Northwest Amateur this year? Because it started in 1921. The reason was in 1943 and 44 was the World War II, and so many tournaments like ours just didn't happen. And so yeah, last year was the 100th anniversary of 1921, but this year is the 100th annual. So great question. Thank you very much, Chuck. Yeah. You can see on that picture on the left, he's got a couple more boys in the back end there. It was a real family affair. I've heard how Brian and Mark and Mike did a lot of assisting on the course, and
About it was, Adam, when we were planting all those trees, we had to water, we had to haul water wagons around, and that was part of the job. I mean, I'd drive the tractor with a water wagon, and Brian would move the hose. So.
Yes.
Sometimes drink the water.
And you've told me how you'd hire guys to go out in the middle of the night to move the water and move it around. So it was a middle of the night job as well. And a true family affair, because Teresa was the clubhouse restaurant manager for about 10 years. Is that right, Chuck? 7 years. So she did a great service to the club as well in the restaurant. So thank you to the Moore family.
What direction, what's the gray building? Is that the, this is the old maintenance shed, that's over by where Travis Cook's house is at now?
Up at the end of the driving range was where the maintenance shed used to be.
Quonset building there, and then when we eliminated that, we built a new shop down there. And as you see, those are some of the trees that just got planted. I mean, we planted groves of trees, and that's what they were, you know.
The gray building and the two white doors, Chuck?
Yeah, that's
This
one.
one, this picture.
Oh, that's the cart shed.
It's the end of that. Okay,
That's the
Oh, sure.
practice team.
okay.
This is 14 green, I'm on 14 green.
That's where it's.
So the picture on the yellow mower is on 14 green, and the dark building in the background is our cart shed that's been slightly expanded, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay, moving on. Bill Zinn is our current tournament chairman. I don't know how many years he's volunteered, but it's been many. Bill would love to be here tonight, but he had to be out of town today, but wanted to acknowledge Bill as our current tournament chairman and all his work. Raleigh Hansen. Raleigh had volunteered many years making an impact with registration and tournament software. Raleigh did some tasks that not just every volunteer knows how to do. He's very tech savvy. The tournament software and you know, the registration is quite a deal. You get guys requesting pairings, sometimes 6 guys requesting to play together, so you got to contact them and say, this doesn't work, guys. What 4 guys are going to play together? Those sort of things. Just endless hours that Raleigh would do every year, and he did a heck of a job of promoting and recruiting college coaches to send their kids to play in Northwest Amateur as well as high school teams. And Raleigh is going to give up his position this year to Matt Stanzel. Raleigh retired this year, and so Matt couldn't be here as well. I wish he could so I could introduce him because many don't know him. But Matt is also very tech savvy, and he's done both our websites for the Northwest Amateur and the Country Club. That's his business, is that sort of thing, website development. He knows the tournament software. He'll do the registration. But wanted to acknowledge Raleigh for all his many years of making a big impact on the Northwest Amateur Tournament. And Bob Rose here, Mr. Spencer, is with us tonight. He was the tournament chairman for 17 years, but volunteered on the committee for many more than that. Bob could tell you here in a second. But want to have Bob come up and say a few things about the tournament here.
Okay.
Either one.
Well, it's truly a privilege and an honor. And I don't know what I could say that could add anything to what Adam and what Chuck have said, because they hit on the very reason it is successful, and that is the people who conduct this tournament year after year after year. I started working for the tournament way back in the late 60s, early 70s. Emery Snyder was the director then, and my friend and good neighbor Bob Woods took it over many years later, and I worked with him many years. When Adam alluded to mailing out the entries and getting them back in the post office, and that was really a scramble. And of course now all the online and technology makes it much, much easier. But it's it's the people that do the work that make the competitors feel comfortable playing in this tournament. They know if they have a tee time for 8:27, it's going to be 8:27 when they play. And Bill's shaking his head. He's been a volunteer many, many times. And when I was asked to take the tournament over. Bob Woods had had a stroke. He was hospitalized. And it was about July. I think we already had the entries out. We were bringing them back. And, you know, your first thought is, this thing's been going on for 90 years, and here I am, and this is an awesome responsibility. And luckily, all the people who were involved before, like Bill Mullenberg and Bill Orison and all those other people that make the tournament so successful, were there. And I remember a little comment about the way the course, the condition. That was the one thing I heard most often in the 17 years. The competitors, the participants would say, "Oh, this course is such great shape." And that is such a tribute to Chuck and his crew. So I am very honored to have been a proud of it. I've been a part of it. I'm proud to have been a part of it. And not much I can say that's going to improve on what Adam has done. Adam is just another one in the line of professionals that over the 100 years that have helped make this tournament what it is. So we're looking forward to this year, the 100th tournament, but 102 years of existence. So thank you all very much.
Okay, we're getting close to finishing up here. If you're about to fall asleep, but not that it's not interesting, but I really appreciate Bob saying a few things for us. So here's your current Northwest Amateur Committee. Thought I should recognize everyone here. Bill Zinn, Tournament Chairman, Matt Stanzel, Registration, Tournament Software, Website, and even a heck of a photographer. So Matt is going to bring a lot to the table there. Bob Rose, past Chairman, is still on the committee. Levi Morris manages our golf course players' assistants, is a good way to put it, kind of the course marshals that just monitor the pace of play to make sure everything is flowing nicely. And Levi does a great job of coordinating that. And, you know, all those volunteers that work with him, you know, they should be recognized as well. I wish I could list everyone, but there's so many people that do those vital roles that you just can't pull off a tournament like this without tons and tons of people to do those roles. Nathan Wint manages our starters table area. He organizes all the volunteers that help with that. Everyone does a great job up there. I just am so impressed watching these guys greet everyone and really service them as they come to the tee. They do a great job. Terry Johnson does a lot of the intercom announcing, calling players to the tee and the tee time management as they're coming along with the starters there. And myself, I just kind of am involved in the meetings, and if there's a rules question, I try to not make a mistake there. And I'm running around trying to make sure that the golf shop things are going smooth and all the range balls are not being run out for the players. I haven't run out yet, but just a joy to be a part of it. So many people that deserve to be mentioned in this presentation that I haven't. Again, that's me not doing the research that I hope to do someday, just finding the time to do it. But Ozzy Osbourne and Bob Woods, I've heard stories of. They were both longtime tournament chairmen of the tournament that really deserve a lot of time on this presentation, and I just don't have that information for you. From my era, I worked with Ryan Lux. I believe he was the golf course superintendent for 10 years. Did a lot to improve the golf course as well. Because again, the product is the golf course as well. The guys come up because they love our course. Justin Nolta is our current golf course superintendent, doing a great job for us. And again, so many more. I really, it's not a complete presentation because there's many people that should be mentioned that aren't. So the tournament, as we've said, what makes this happen? The people that volunteer. Not every golf course gets this. A lot of golf courses try to do something like this and they get 3 or 5 volunteers. I would say from my counting, I would say at least 60 plus members and a few from the community that just enjoy the tournament, volunteer for the tournament each year. And it's something to see. You know, they come out and they grill hamburgers. We sell, you know, a lot of hamburgers and hot dogs right outside as players are coming by. And it takes a lot of people to offer that for a large part of 4 days. And they come out. I mean, just countless members that do this. It's really neat to see. The Northwest Amateur Committee, obviously, that's a year-round deal, meeting and planning. And thank you again to the committee. The staff, we have a lot of great staff members that really, you know, pull through for us on these 16, 17-hour days of the tournament. It's a big undertaking. And then the bottom, what makes it special? You can put on a heck of a show, but it's not going to do much if people don't come. And I'm always amazed that guys will come from California, Arizona, the whole country for several days to come to Spencer, Iowa. An hour and 10 minutes, as was said before, it took to sell out 384 spots. And we had a lot of disappointed people that did not get in that 384 person field. And so thank you to all those longtime participants, and if you're watching online, for being a part of this, because it's so neat to see. There's people I just see during that tournament. It's like its own tournament family that I see at that time of year. As Chuck mentioned, you know, the father-son pairings, these guys get together and spend that quality time at this tournament. Guys that grew up and maybe graduated from Spencer and moved off, this is when they come back and get together with their friends from high school and have a good time. The top amateur golfers across the Midwest, a lot of college players from all over the Midwest come. They're neat to see. You know, big names, you know, Eric Van Rooyen, if you've heard that name, I think he's probably about the 15th ranked golfer in the world right now. He played in the Northwest Amateur in 2012. Did not win the tournament, but I remember him, you know, very well, working with him and his friends. They were all on the Minnesota Gophers golf team, and very nice gentlemen, and he's gone on to make millions of dollars in the last 10 years. Many others. We don't have great documentation of Zach Johnson, but we've been told from some participants that he definitely played when he was younger, so that's pretty cool. But so many talented people. I mean, a lot of the vintage names, you know, were before my time, but they were incredible golfers. But every year we get just amazing golfers to come play in this tournament, and as you probably know, that a lot of times the winning score is about 17 under, 18 under par. You know, they can play a different game of golf than we're all used to. So thank you to everyone that makes this tournament happen. It really is a special thing that's worthy of being talked about on national television. If people knew about it, they'd come from all over the place to play in a tournament this special. This trophy right here is in the possession of Walt Thomas's family. This is actually the third tournament trophy, I believe. I'm 100% certain of that from the newspapers I've read. They started with a 2-foot tall silver trophy that Walt Thomas won himself after his third victory. And the rule used to be that if you won the tournament 3 times, you got to keep the trophy. So hopefully somebody has that trophy. I've never seen it, but I am confident hopefully it still exists. So Walt bought the next trophy and donated it, and I can't remember. I think it was John Jacobs. If I'm not, it was either John Jacobs or Jim English that won that 3 times and claimed that one. And this was the third one. This was also the Walter H. Thomas Trophy that he donated, and this lasted till 1973 when it was retired. I believe this one was Jim English, and it says right on the engraving on the bottom, if you see it in person, that it was retired. And so since 1973, we haven't had a trophy like this with all the names engraved, and that's something that's been on the top of my wish list for many, many years. And with the 100th annual tournament being this year, in the wintertime, we were talking a little bit, what are you going to do? And we talked long enough, we're going to have a new trophy. This picture does not do justice to the trophy that we're going to have hopefully in about a month. It's going to be 2 feet tall, 24 inches tall. Very cool. It's going to have the Northwest Amateur logo real big on the side. You can see the 2 levels of engraved champions. That previous trophy, it only had the champions from the years since the second one was retired. This one is going to have all 99 champions on it, and it's going to be a sight to see. I'm about to finalize this. We're going to obviously approve this with all the committee and those involved, but the top base, the skinnier base, is planned to have the champions from the original course site. I believe there's 42 champions from that, so it's kind of neat to separate the two locations. And then the bottom base will start from 1965 with George Turner and all the champions up to today, and we should have room for another 50 to 75 years, it sounds like. So this trophy will not be given away to a three-time champion. This is going to stay with the club for many, many decades, and it's going to be pretty cool. So I'm really excited about it. The reason this was possible, obviously, anytime you do something like this, you probably want to have donated funds, so there's no controversy. And I want to thank Darren Fiddler. He's on the board of directors. He was willing to volunteer to pay for this trophy if necessary. So that gave us the green light to get it done. I'd love to see this go down in a different fashion than that, rather than make Darren pay for the entire trophy. We haven't announced this really to hardly anybody. This is kind of the unveiling of this image. Bob Rose and Mike Harleman know about this trophy. They both volunteered $100. I'm volunteering $100. And it'd be pretty cool to see about 29 people want to do that, to say that they were part of making this happen. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. And we'll kind of take the heat off of Darren, and he can maybe do something else in the future that we do all these projects. But I really appreciate Darren stepping forward to make that happen with that willingness to do that. And hopefully we can take a little bit of burden off of that pledge. But it's just under $2,900 is what this will be, and it's going to be a lot of fun to have all the players come this year and see this. And I see this, just random things that you see where these players that are so talented, they vie to have their name engraved on a trophy like this. You see it at the other tournaments they play in. So to actually have this type of thing represent our tournament and have them admire seeing their name on it if they have one, or if they hope to do it in the future, it just adds to the tournament and the prestige of the event. So I'm really excited to have this around every year and display it. So that's about all I have. I think they had in mind to show the video we made, but I kind of went through the whole video, so there's not much reason to show it. But if you want to see it later, I won't. I'll let everybody get home, because it's just a kind of a rehash of what we've gone through. But we do have it on here if somebody wants to watch it later on, if you haven't seen that. But thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, and those watching online. It's a lot of fun to do this. I'm honored to be asked to do this. And if anyone wasn't mentioned that deserved to be, I apologize. Like I said, I'm still in progress of the research I want to do, and the past history that I want to learn that I haven't learned yet. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We've allowed for some questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I was hoping it would. It appears that I have some hands going up on the trophy donation, so it's really going to be cool if we can do that, and heck, if it goes too well, we can maybe pay for a podium for it to stand on too, out on the number 1 tee. But anyway, thank you very much, Brian. We offered a few questions, but before we close this out, are there any questions for the crowd? If you're wondering something, I can sure answer a few here. Anyone?
One thing that I'd interject, we talked about everybody at the club, except for Wonder Woman.
Yes, good point. So Tom mentioned one person that we haven't mentioned from modern day era, and that is our current restaurant manager, Deb Jaycox. The food is a big part of the tournament. It's not just the golf course, but they come and they need somewhere to eat, and those that are members know that Deb has just transformed our restaurant, and I hope that she's around for many more years than me, because I don't know what I'll do if she leaves. But just absolutely amazing. Tom called her Wonder Woman, and she is. To give you an idea of the impact, we have a nice golf membership base, but when she started with us, we had 46 social members. A restaurant at a country club is not an easy thing to tackle, to get enough volume to be financially viable, and get the kind of crowd you need. And you know, we had our renovation of the restaurant, which was a huge difference maker about the time that she started. But to give you a rundown, she's been with us for just over 3 years, and today we have about 317 social members. And our sales are off the charts, more than double, possibly nearing triple, but it's just incredible. And, you know, if you ever, on a daily basis, you should go in and just tell Deb thank you, because it's making a huge difference for the club year round, but also the Northwest Amateur. She's wowing the guys with the food she's offering, because it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These guys are hungry. They have 6:20 a.m. tea times, and they want a breakfast sandwich, and she's pulling it off. And that's not easy to do as a restaurant manager, to be ready for a tournament like that, and she's getting it done. So yes, very good point to mention Deb. Any other questions?
When you make our checks out, Spencer Golf and Country Club, what? For the $100.
That'd be great. Yes, we will. We'll be sure to recognize through the summer the list of who made this happen, and that would be great. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are you still gonna have one of those little glass trophy for them to take?
Yes, good point. So they will still get their normal crystal trophy, and this will be one that they'll, I guess it hasn't been 100% decided if they can take a victory lap with it for a few days. But they will still get a trophy to keep, and this one will kind of be the symbolic one that's engraved and stays with the club for decades to come. Good question. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks again for coming. I know it was a long presentation, but appreciate you coming for it, and hope you learned something.
Just to everyone, thank you so much for coming. I hope you all learned a lot. I know I did. But hope to see you next week for round 2. Although it won't be golf. Oh, wait a minute. Good. I'm sorry. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay.
Put me down too.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Simpson, Howell.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.